This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. Today's guest has been through it, but he hasn't let it stop him. Welcome T-Bear to the show. Born Richard Gerstein, he grew up spending time in both New York City and the Caribbean. He was playing pretty early on. In fact, he was invited to his first studio session at the age of just 17 by Richie Havens. Soon after, he was discovered by the Kiss camp and began writing with the band. That helped him secure his first record deal, which led to the name change and a disco smash hit called Sunshine Hotel. Yet the 70s were wild. Now rebranded as T-Bear, he continued writing, recording, and playing with artists like Stephen Stills and Manassas and Crosby, Stills and Nash, in addition to releasing his own albums. But after spending some time writing with Stills and working with Greg Kihn and others, T-Bear went on a 25-year hiatus. He talks about what happened, what he was doing instead of music, and what and who brought him back. He's recently released a new album that has some amazing cameos and a killer core band. It's called The Way of the World, and if you like songs that tell stories, you're going to love it. T-Bear opened up and was very candid about some of the rough times he's gone through, and I'm grateful I can now call him a friend. Go grab the album on Quarto Valley Records. Follow him on social media at Richard_T-Bear on Instagram and T-Bear on Facebook. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials. Grab our merch at performanceanx.threadless.com. Feed us coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And now it's time for some stories with T-Bear on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
So listen, cats and kittens, I've had performance anxiety here. And I loved being on this show. And this cat is really amazing. He asked great questions. He did his homework. And he deserves your full and undivided attention. And just remember, if you can't help him, don't hurt him. Peace and love, T-Bear.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, and excited to have you.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. What are you doing at 8 o'clock at night now?
Yeah, just getting home from work about an hour ago.
All right. Cool.
Had a little dinner with the family, and I am sorely without a drink, unfortunately. But I gave it to my wife, but, you know.
There you go.
For a good cause. Well, thank you for joining me today. I listened to your new album, and it was awesome. And I started to go back and dive deeper into your catalog, and it's really wild. I started to do a bunch of research, and this is one of those podcasts where I'm not really happy that we have a limited time because there's just so much going on. You've had such a wild career, and I want to learn as much about it as possible in the time that we have. So let's just dive right into it.
We'll take as much time as we need. And if you want to do a part two, we can do a part two.
Perfect. One of the first things I read is that you were born in New York City, but you were raised in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
How did you end up in the Caribbean?
My parents had businesses outside the U.S. and they were manufacturers. So they had factories in Puerto Rico and in Haiti. And so I spent a lot of time in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and a lot of time in Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Oh, wow.
So I got the Latin vibe. I got the kind of the Latin calypso vibe, the mento vibe, and then I got I guess in Haiti, it was, they do a thing called the rah-rah, and it's kind of a cross between African and maybe Cajun.
Oh, wow.
A little. It's Creole is what it is. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I was into percussion first. I grabbed sticks and would, I'd bang anything with a stick that made noise.
So is that in the Caribbean? Was that when you first started to really pay attention to music, or was it after you?
My parents, didn't have sitters all the time until my mom's mom came over and would look after me. But they used to take me to nightclubs with them. They'd sit me in a chair, and they'd go out, drink and dance. And then I'd be sitting in the chair, watch the band,
Oh, wow.
And I heard some amazing Cuban bands in Puerto Rico.
Oh, my.
Los Chevaliers de España,
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
man. So that had to have had a deep effect on you.
Huge. And then when I, came back to New York, I discovered that kind of vibe was happening up on East 86th Street in Manhattan, and Ray Barretto and, cats that played great timbales and all the legendary, Puerto Rican and Cuban band leaders were there. I was the only white fella in the whole room.
Yeah.
The only vanilla fella.
So you said you started off with doing percussion. Did singing catch on with you real quick, or were you more into playing the instruments?
I was more into, at that point it was chanting, it was kind of chanting, little drum circles and things like that. And then, singing really didn't come along until a long time later.
Oh, okay.
When I got back to New York, my parents had a piano and I started kind of banging on it like a percussion instrument. And they went and got some lady down the street to give me a few lessons and told me where to put my hands. And this is middle C, and that's a chord, triad, 3 notes,
Right.
And then, they kind of left it up to me to do what I wanted to do. So I brought in a little phonograph, put it on top of the piano. And every time I bought a record, at the record store, because I was really into vinyl, because that's all there was in those days.
Right.
I'd put it on the record player and I'd put it on 33 1/3, and, I'd be finding the key it was in,
Wow.
And if it was, for example, The Doors' Light My Fire, that organ lick, I had a hard time with that. So I'd slow the turntable down to 16 1/2, which is half of 33 1/3.
Right. Yeah.
It would stay in the same key, but be a lot slower. And I'd go, oh, that's the note,
That's all. We had a record player that would go down to 16, and we just used it for like sound effects. So
Right.
It made everything sound creepy.
Yeah. It's very creepy.
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to go out and start singing in public and be in bands?
Well, I loved music a lot. When I got back to New York, I went to schools in Yonkers because my parents lived outside the city. And I was digging that whole thing. And, I'd go over to my friend's house and everybody in that neighborhood was into music. And we'd go over there and just, we love music. And so I said, let's put a band together. So we all got instruments. We nagged our parents till we got instruments. And then we'd go out and play parties, And I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if it's.
Yes.
That's me at 12 years old, almost 13.
Oh, my God.
And that's my first keyboard, a Farfisa Combo Compact. And that's the band I played with in those days. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm back there.
This was
being a side man,
right? So what was the scene like at that point? I mean, were there clubs, or was it mostly open mic nights? Or how were you guys getting out and playing?
Well, as soon as I got my driver's license, and at New York, you get it at 16, 15, you got your learner's permit at 16. As soon as I got my driver's license, we had a couple of extra cars laying around, and I would get in the car and I would drive into the city, and it took a lot of guts, but I'd do it. And, I'd go around and I'd pick up a periodical called like The Village Voice or something.
I remember
and I'd look in the back and, see what was playing, at the bitter end, the Cafe Wah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
all those places, Dr. Generosity's, a million places, and open mic nights. And I'd go and I'd sit there and watch everybody try to get up and, do their thing.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD.
Then I got a job at Manny's Music, which was on West 48th Street.
Okay.
It was the best music store in the city. It's where I got my Farfisa combo compact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I got a job there, and I was kind of working there, showing people keyboards and things like that. And they had 3 floors. It was a big place.
Oh, wow.
And all the bands used to come through there, that were playing in New York City. And the places that they were playing was like the Palladium or the Garden. And the biggest place to play at that point was the Fillmore East. That was the place to play. And so a lot of roadies came through there to get gear and whatnot, and they'd hand out passes because, in those days you got to go see, amazing acts. I mean, I'm talking about, legendary amazing acts for $5 or $7. That's what a ticket cost in those days.
Oh, man.
We thought we were really styling hard with a pass that we didn't have to pay $7 or $5. So I went down there one night because a bunch of guys were in there from a band called the Iron Butterfly. And they had this hit called Inagata Devita.
Oh, yeah.
And they had like an 11-minute organ solo.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to hear this, So I went down to the Fillmore East and I got my seat and I'm sitting there and there's an opening act for them. And I didn't know who they were. And they get announced and they say, ladies and gentlemen, for their second appearance in the United States, please welcome from Great Britain, Led Zeppelin.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Led Zeppelin opened for the Iron Butterfly.
Oh God. And you got to
and
see
they played the first album that they did, Communication Breakdown, all those great songs, right?
Yeah.
And I saw the best rock and roll set I've ever seen to this day that night. They killed it. I mean, killed it. And I wouldn't have wanted to be the Iron Butterfly after that.
It's not good when you get shown up by your opener.
Yeah, well, no one was going to touch him. No. I mean, that was legendary, and that was iconic, and that was as good as it gets. And I thought, wow, this is great, man. I didn't want to stay for Iron Butterfly. I was done. At that point, I left there, and I went out for a beer or something down in the Village. But I used to go to open mic nights, and I started seeing these people that were pretty amazing. Odetta.
Oh, wow.
This singer. Richie Havens. This guy called John Prine, who had come to town.
Wow.
A guy called Sandy Bull, and people like that, Fred Neil, all these amazing songwriters. And I was playing one night at Dr. Generosity's and Richie Havens came over to me and he says, "Oh, I love the way you play. You play very different than most of the, he didn't want to say white guys, most of the players that are, in New York.
Right.
You happen to have some sort of a vibe about you and the way you play." And I said, well, that's probably because I got a lot of my DNA in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. And he loved that. He loved that I had like Puerto Rican in me. And so he said, well, would you come to the studio tomorrow night? I'm making a record. And and he was pretty well known. And I walked in there and the cream of the best session players in New York were playing on this date. And I almost threw up. I mean, it was like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm 17, 18. Wow. 19 at the time. Bernard Purdy, Chuck Rainey, Cornell Dupree, Gerald Jamont, all those cats, and I played, and I didn't realize the guy that was engineering and producing it was the famous Al Schmidt. And Al Schmidt, who was an amazing producer and engineer from, who held Ford at Capitol Records.
Right, yeah.
The Capitol Studios.
Oh, my
God. But, that kind of launched me, and Odetta was really kind to me, and Richie was really kind to me, and I started, playing these jams and these in all these kind of events and these bands, and I played some festivals with Richie and whatnot, and all of a sudden, I put a band together, and I'm playing these kind of well-known rock and roll clubs. And some guy came walking through, and I thought he was one of the Village People. He had, honest to God, his name was Sean Delaney. He had this handlebar mustache, kind of waxed on the end.
Okay.
And these leathers, right, head to toe in leathers with chains and shit like that, And I thought he was like the motorcycle guy in the Village People. And he kept walking by the stage, and he'd kind of glare at me in front, and he'd walk by the other way, and he'd kind of glare at me.
Oh, man.
And we took a break, and I left the stage, and he walked up to me and said, "You know what?" I said, "What?" He says, "You play in a really strange way, and I really like the way you play." I said, "Thank you very much." He says, "I'd like to introduce you to the band that I'm associated with, and maybe you can do some playing with them, and maybe write or something. Do you write?" I said, "Yeah." I said, 3 or 4 of those songs that you listen to were songs I wrote. He says, "Okay, let's do that." He says, "Call me." It turns out this guy is one of the guys that manages Kiss.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. And he's also handling a band called Piper with Billy Squier in it, another band called Toby Bow. And all of a sudden, I'm playing on all their records, and I'm ghostwriting with them all. And I'm going back and forth from New York to London all the time. And I'm doing lots and lots of sessions because people said, "You play like," and here's what they said, "You play like a cross between Leon Russell and Nicky Hopkins."
Wow.
And I went, wow, that's pretty cool. And so,
awesome.
Those were my heroes: Leon Russell, Nicky Hopkins, and Mac Rabenak, Dr. John.
Oh, yeah.
And Alan Toussaint. Those were my heroes. And in the jazz world, Oscar Peterson, Ramsey Lewis, those cats, Chick Corea.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those guys. I was in. I loved Stevie Wonder. I loved things like that. Right. Anyway, so I got to be playing on a lot of stuff, and Gene at the time was dating this big Hollywood star. And I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah. Yep. Wow.
It's Cher and Gene, and that's me in London hanging with them. And she, I was doing his album, then I was doing Peter Criss's album, and then she said to me, "I'd love for you to, I love your songs. I had a new album and I just got signed to RCA."
Right.
And I had a solo album called Red Hot and Blue. And she says, "I love some of those songs." And,
yes.
And there's one in particular that Sean Delaney, the guy that looked like the guy in, Village People, he said, "You should listen to this one called A Pain in My Heart." And she says, "I love that song. Can I do it on my new album?" And I said, I'd be honored.
Heading for the coast, trying to make the most of this misery. 'Cause there's a pain in my heart, and it's tearing me apart. Well, I guess that's just the way the story goes.
So she put it on her album called Take Me Home. She changed the title of the song to Love and Pain. And to this day, they say it's the best ballad she's ever sung. So, I went out to California. I hung with her. I helped her put a band together. We did 3 more albums together. And that was really, 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 really nice. And, I remembered that, this is what I wanted to do. And I remember the very day and the very minute that I just decided this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And it happened at the Fillmore East. And I got a pass to go down there one of those days, when I was working at Manny's. And there was a jam session that night.
Okay.
And the roadie said, "Come on down, man. You play great keyboards. We've been listening to you showing people, Wurlitzers and Rhodes and shit like that.
Yeah.
And come down. It's going to be a great jam night. It's not advertised. It's just going to be open to like the industry.
Okay.
And, and you should come down. There's going to be some good jamming." I said, "Well, who's jamming?" He says, "Don't worry about it. Just come down." And yeah, right.
Nice.
And I got a backstage pass, and it was my first backstage pass.
Oh.
And I got a backstage pass, and I'm standing on the side of the wings. And about a half an hour to an hour into the jam, the guitar player was standing in the front, looks at me and goes, "Come on, kid." And I go out, and he sits me at a Rhodes, and I'm just playing with them. I don't know what I played to this day. I don't know if I was in the right key, wrong key, major, minor, but I was on stage at the Fillmore East playing with the Grateful Dead, Traffic, and Hot Tuna.
Wow.
And I looked around and I went, I want to do this the rest of my life. That was the moment.
Wow. Oh, what? Holy.
So that's the early days.
Yeah, that'll make you want to do that for the rest of your life. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so you mentioned your first album, Red Hot and Blue, and I've got a question for you because I was listening to it, and you had kind of like to what sounds like, I don't want to say a surprise hit, but just one song just does not seem to fit with the rest of it, and it's the song that became the disco hit, Sunshine Hotel.
I took my baby to the Sunshine Hotel. She said she'd do me and she done me well. And what on, there's no need to ring the bell. We're talking about the Sunshine Hotel. Sunshine Hotel. You just walk on in, no need to ring the bell.
No need to ring the bell.
I took me lady there and she done me well. We're talking about the Sunshine Hotel. Well, since I see you riding up the street.
How did that happen? Because it just seems to be an outlier on that album, but it was this hit.
It was a huge, huge hit.
Yeah, and it still gets
was
sampled.
It was number 4 in the world dance charts, and in many places, number 1.
Wow.
And how that happened was, okay, the two of the bands that I really was in love with in my 20s, my very early 20s, was, or even in my teenage years, was a band from Canada called the Guess Who.
Oh, love the Guess Who.
I was nuts for the Guess Who.
Yeah.
Okay. Burton Cummings, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then there was this other guy from the Midwest called Bob Seger. And I thought, this guy's really got it going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting. And then I found out that the same guy that produced the Guess Who produced Night Moves for Bob Seger. His name was Jack Richardson.
Oh, wow. Okay. I never realized that.
Okay. So the record company signs me. I have to change my name.
Okay.
I was known as, my legal name, Gerstein.
Okay.
Richard Gerstein.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's on record. It's on early records, Gerstein. And the record company says, we're not putting that on a record. And I said, well, why? And the guy says, well, that's because Jews don't sell in the South.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He said, oh, what about Springsteen?
Yeah. Ha! Hey.
He said, he ain't Jewish. So I had this big kind of woolen kind of animal coat on kind of looking thing. And he said, any nicknames? They said, yeah, they call me Bear because of this coat. He says, all right, you're now Richard the Bear.
Okay.
And I said, can we get rid of the? He says, okay, Richard T. Bear. I said, okay, I'll do that because I wanted a record deal.
Yeah, hey, that was the holy grail.
So I go in the studio with Jack Richardson, and we cut all kinds of things, and we cut Sunshine Hotel as kind of a rock and roll song. And at the time, disco was starting to bloom, and it was really happening.
Yeah.
And so the guy that was head of A&R over there, a guy called Warren Schatz, he decided to take the tapes, go into a studio, and make a maxi single out of it, make a disco single out of it. And to his credit, it was really, can I curse?
Absolutely.
It's fucking amazing, man. This guy really, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was not a big disco guy, but he laid into certain kind of grooves and kept it going on those things. And all of a sudden kind of cross-faded some other things happening. And I went, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And although I never live did it that way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I did it the way it was on the album. But hey, I had to go around to a lot of discos in the world where it was number one, and kind of lip sync the song.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was all over Europe and, Eastern Europe, and it was huge in Great Britain. It was being played all the time on the BBC. It was like 100 times a day you'd hear that song.
Yeah, I saw it on American Bandstand. I saw you up there, and
I was on it really took off. And that being said, it was an interesting time for me. I got a record deal. I got an agent. The agency was Premier Talent, and they put me out as an opening act in front of guys that were headliners and that were playing not stadiums, but places with 15 to 18,000 people.
Wow.
Cobo Hall and Richfield, in Cleveland and places like that. And, and these big shows. And I was opening for the Doobie Brothers. I was the opening act for Jay Giles. I was the opening act for a whole bunch of people. And then I'd split the bills with, Johnny Winter and, and all these other blues rock bands. And it taught me a lot about live music and performing live. I learned a lot. The lead singer of Jay Giles, Peter, he took me under his wing and he says, this is what you got to do, and it was really nice to me, very generous.
That's a hell of a guy to have as a mentor.
Yeah, he kind of mentored me a little bit.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Anyway, so that's what happened with Sunshine Hotel.
I've been reading so much amazing stuff. So you're on the Richie Havens album. You played on music that ended up getting Pat Benatar signed. You wrote music for Cher, but you also ended up touring with Stephen Stills. And if I'm getting the timeline, so you guys you played with Manassas as well as CSN, right?
Yeah, I played with the tail end of Manassas. He had another band with the guys from Manassas. And it was called the Christmas Band.
Okay.
It was, I think that's what he called it, because we used to go out in that band, around the holidays, and he said we all need some Christmas cash, so we go out, we go out like that. Oh, and I also stayed with, Steve was great to me. I also stayed at his house and we wrote a bunch of stuff together. And, to his credit, he got a hold of this song called 7 League Boots.
Okay.
And it's now known as Southern Cross.
I wanted to ask you about that because that song is etched into my childhood memories. When I lived in Virginia and moved up to New Jersey, one of the first things I remember hearing, and when music really started making an impact on me, was when my dad bought Daylight Again and
Right.
just played that over and over again. And that song brings so many great memories flooding back to me every time I hear it.
Oh, it was a great song. The minute I heard it, as 7 League Boots, which was a little bit different, I got involved, and he brought me in the studio. Graham was a real good supporter of mine, and Crosby was having a little bit of an issue with substance abuse in a big way at that moment.
Yeah, I've heard.
It was great playing on that. It was great being on Daylight Again. It was great being on that song. That song is iconic, and and I love it. I love being known for playing on that. Yeah, and Stephen and I on those Christmas and holiday tours, we'd wind up. The band would go back to L.A. and he and I would wind up staying like in New Orleans together at a hotel for 3 or 4 nights, 5 nights, whatever.
Okay.
Just soak in the whole thing, because he was from, his family was in the next state over. They were in Alabama, and so we'd get all New Orleans out, and vibed at who dat,
Right.
all that stuff, and we'd write songs. And footnote here, backpedal. One day when I was recording Fresh Bear Tracks, which is the album that's my comeback album, because I'd taken a 25-year hiatus.
Right.
Right. While I was recording that, I was in my hangar over at the Santa Monica Airport, where I have a little hangar over there, and a little music studio there. And I was going through a bunch of boxes and things that landed there after my divorce.
Okay.
And there was a shoebox, and I opened it up, and it was just full of cassettes,
Okay.
And I said, I've never seen this box. And I'm going through it, and it's all Crosby, Stills, and Nash outtakes. And it's all Crosby, Stills, and Nash things that either didn't make it on the album, or, and then I'm going through it, and I'm going, oh, wow, I remember that one and that one. And then there was one that says Stills Bear. So I went out and bought a cassette player, because I didn't have one.
Right.
I wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
And I put it in, and there's this song called Give It Up, and another song called Who Dat,
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, this is the New Orleans stuff. And so Give It Up just struck a bell. I went in the studio that week, recorded it, and then it was time for overdubs. I got my buddy Walter Trout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got Walter. And I called Stills up, and I said, all right, man, you got to play on this record, because you and I wrote it 30 years ago, and it's been living in a shoebox.
Oh.
So he trades licks with Walter, and it went to number 1 in Europe.
That's awesome. That's such a good song.
Yeah, Give It Up is a good song. So I got really lucky, and a lot of things opened up for me, and I was really happy about I got a phone that's going off over there, but I'm sorry.
No worries. I've had a lot worse.
It'll stop in a minute. One thing led to another, and it was great. I've been fortunate that I learned by listening to good singer-songwriters how to write a song. I'm really grateful that I went to work for a jingle company, that, I had to write jingles.
Oh, wow.
Before I got my record deal, and I would bring in they give me the copy. I'd write something up. I'd go over to the guy that ran the jingle house, and, he was big poobah in the jingle business.
Right.
And I'd play it for him, and he'd go, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus."
That sounds about right for a jingle guy.
Yeah. And, things like that. And you have to tell the story in under 3 minutes, if you want to get it played on the radio. And, and there's a thing called a hook, learn how to use it.
I guess the question that springs to mind now is from 78 to 86, you've got 4 solo albums, 4 albums, 1 live album. And it's, it spans 8 years. And, you're playing out and enjoying music. And then you just left. What happened? Why did you leave music?
There's always a girl involved.
I figured it had to be.
I met this girl. I thought she was a California surfer. She had blonde hair and everything. And I'd never been out with a blonde haired California surfer girl. And it turns out she's from New Jersey.
Oh, right? Man, I have bad experiences with Jersey.
Need I say more?
No, I lived in Jersey for 13 years.
I fell for her, and I was living in Europe at the time because I had been over in Europe, got another record deal, and was living in Europe and producing records, A&R for a label.
Okay.
And also signed a record deal. And then I got a call that this guy, Greg Kinn, who had a thing called Our Love's in Jeopardy, he wanted me to produce something for him and write something. So I wrote him a song. I flew into San Francisco, went in the studio with him, cut some demos for him. Then I flew down to LA and I went to a club one night called the Central. It's now called the Viper Room.
Oh, okay.
And I was in there and I went to see a guy called Chucky Weiss, and his band was called the Goddamn Liars. And and Chucky Weiss was made famous by Ricky Lee Jones, Chucky's in Love.
Oh, okay.
It was the Chucky, right?
Wow.
And Chucky would pontificate and say this, that about his prowess with this, that, and the other thing. And the band would yell, "You goddamn liar." Yeah. So it was Chucky Weiss and the Goddamn Liars. And there was this girl there, and she was pretty hot. And I thought she was the California surfer. And she turns out to be a New Jersey kind of parochial schoolgirl kind of woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we're in our 30s and I'm kind of digging this. And I took her out and one thing led to another. And, I went and closed the deal and married her. And then she got pregnant with our first kid. And she said to me, "No more music for you." She was German, Norwegian.
Oh,
no more music for you.
Wow.
You want to play it in the house, play it in the house. I'll set up a studio, have a studio in the little office studio or something, play in there, but you have to tour around the world. We have a family now,
wow.
and she had me go out and get a day job and be responsible.
Yeah.
And I went out and got a day job working at a light bulb company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on the phone, selling light bulbs every day.
Oh.
And it was humiliating and crushing. And long story short, I mean, when I went out into the field with the sales manager, he took me over to A&M Records.
Yeah.
And the chick that was working the desk, I walked in and she goes, "T-Bear, what you doing here? You're not on the books for a session." And I went, "Oh no, I'm selling light bulbs now." She goes, "What?"
Wow.
And so that was the kind of thing that went on. But you know what? I had a kid, I had a second kid, I had a third kid, and I had a life. And I started my own light bulb company called Bear Lighting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And every day I went to Bear Lighting, and on the occasion I would do a session. Someone would call me and I'd go out and sneak away and play a session or something.
Oh,
But what I did do every summer was I played in this thing called the Musicians Picnic.
Oh, okay. What's that?
And the Musicians Picnic was a clean and sober celebration of musicians that had cleaned up their acts.
Oh, wow.
And it raised money to put musicians that were in peril or jeopardy into rehabs halfway houses, detox,
Oh, that's
hospitals, or had mental situations.
right.
Okay, so we started we started this nonprofit organization called MAP, the Musicians Assistance Program, and we had this picnic, and everybody went to the picnic, and and we had everyone from Chicago, Eric Clapton,
Wow.
Billy Idol, Anthony Kiedis from the Peppers, Matt and Duff from Guns N' Roses, and Dr. John, and these big jazz cats. And we had these wonderful picnics, and we raised a lot of money and helped a lot of people. MAP became Musicians Assistance Program. MAP became Music Cares. Now Music Cares is an arm of the Grammys.
Right. Yeah. I'm familiar with that. Oh, that is awesome.
And I sat on the board for 25 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then fast forward, I got divorced, got my own place, met a woman who I kind of dug, and 2 years later married her.
Excellent.
And she said to me, "It's time for you to put a band together. You need to play." She says, "I know all the records you played on because I have half of them." And the irony of the whole thing, all right, 6 degrees of separation, is my ex was in your band playing guitar 25 years ago.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I'd sit at the piano, and Nina, the woman I married, would sit at her desk on the other side of the piano. And she went back to UCLA to get a degree as an adult. And I'd play, and she says, "Go, okay, write a song. And I'd start writing a song, and something would come to, she goes, "Oh, that's a really good hook. Keep that." And then I'd play something. She goes, "No, throw that one away." But keep that first one,
Oh, that is awesome.
And I played a session at Robbie Krieger's studio for somebody. And Robbie walked through there, and he saw me. He says, "Bear, what are you doing here, man?" And I said, "Well, I'm just playing on this guy's record." He says, "When are you going to play on your record?" I said, I don't know, Robbie." He says, "Well, you made good records, and I really like the way you play. So how about coming here and making an album?" And I said, "Look, I don't have deep pockets. I just gone through a divorce. I'm not signed to a record company."
Right.
He says, "I tell you what, I'll give you the studio on the days that it's not in use.
Wow.
You just pay the engineer."
Oh, wow.
So I took him up on his offer. And there was one more caveat. He says, "I get to play on it."
Oh.
I said, "Okay, cool."
How can you turn that down? My God.
Exactly. So I went in the studio, and over the next 18 months, I recorded 23 tracks, 21 originals, and everyone showed up to play on it. Stephen Stills, Edgar Winter, Bent Montench from the Heartbreakers, Tom Scott, the E Street Horns, Mike Finnegan, Chuck Berghofer from the Wrecking Crew.
I saw Doug Pettibone.
Doug Pettibone. I mean, everybody in the world showed up on that record.
And the aforementioned Walter Trout.
And Walter Trout, Denny Sidewell, founding member of Wings,
Yes.
and Lawrence Juber.
Wow.
From Wings. And Lawrence and I have been like mates for 45 years. And, I love that man. And, the album came out during COVID, so it didn't get the right kind of oomph because I couldn't go out there and promote it.
Right.
But it went number one in over in Europe and the Netherlands. Give it up. And
awesome.
And that was awesome. And it got great reviews. It got a 9 out of 10 in the UK because they loved the fact that I was back. And here's the thing: when it was almost finished, my wife Nina was diagnosed stage 4 cancer.
Oh, wow.
And terminal, and given 4 to 6 months to live.
Oh.
And when we were just about finished with it, mixing it and everything, she passed away. And before she died, she said to me, I've written you a note, and please read it and live it. And it said, finish the album, never cancel another gig, go out on tour, live your best life, fall in love again.
Oh, wow.
And so Fresh Bear Tracks is dedicated to Nina. That's the album.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And the last song on the album is Nina's song. It's that song we wrote together, kind of, when she said, "Oh, keep that," and throw away that. Yeah.
Don't ever leave me lonely. You're my one and only. I love you through the end of days. I wish the days were longer. For my love for you grows stronger.
And so it's dedicated to her, and I honor her every day. And that's why I continue to honor her by The Way of the World, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, so basically, I'm a singer-songwriter that listened to a lot of Bob Dylan records and a lot of John Prine records and a lot of Chris Christopherson records, you know?
Yeah, I can tell. Because what I loved about your writing is every song tells a story. Nothing is superfluous. Every song tells a great story.
I write short stories and I write the lyrics first, and then I put them to music.
Oh, that is awesome.
You know, there's a lot of short stories on this album that became songs. Walter Mitty's Glasses, for example.
I'm afraid that you might melt away. It's true. And I met somebody new, and she's almost you. She's you in every way. True. And you're taking my breath away. So true. So let me count the ways.
That's just a short story that I wrote about a guy that goes into an antique barn, and there's all these antiques and things, and he comes up to the desk by the cash register, and they have a box full of glasses, and he looks through the glasses, and he grabs one out, and he puts it on, and he looks in the mirror, and nah, not me. And he grabs another one, he puts that on, and he looks, and all of a sudden there's somebody else looking back at him. It's not him. The guy is like handsome and younger and tan. He's got a perfect hairdo. He's got a suit on, you know, and he goes to the owner of the barn. He says, "Where do you get these glasses?" He says, "I don't know. A guy comes in once a month and sells us glasses. We put them out and people buy them." He says, No, this glass, this one, whose glasses are these?" And the guy picks it up and he looks at the arm and he goes, "Oh, it says property of Walter Mitty." So it's this guy, Walter Mitty's glasses.
I love
And as you know, the story of Walter Mitty.
Yep. I remember reading that.
That's the short story that I put to music.
Before we get too deep into the new album, I wanted to say that two of my favorite songs of your entire catalog are on your latest releases. And I think my favorite being Nina's song. I absolutely adore that song. The strings on it are just absolutely gorgeous.
She wrote the string parts.
Wow.
She wrote the string parts, and Stevie Black did the strings himself.
It's such a beautiful song. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite two out of your entire catalog.
They play that song almost daily on Paris radio. It's such a sentimental song. They love it.
It really is. And the strings are just so touching and so beautiful. You said you had recorded like 23 songs for Fresh Bear Tracks.
Yeah.
Are some of the songs on The Way of the World from that session, or is it new stuff?
Yes. Yes. I'll tell you the ones that made it from that one. This Bird Has Flown.
Distance, this love's gone cold. It's been a journey to my soul.
That's what I was going to tell you. That was my other top pick of yours. It's the Nina song and This Bird Is Flown, my two favorites that you've ever written.
And the other one that came from that album was They Can Kill You.
Ah, two awesome tracks, man.
Yeah. I still have three on the shelf that'll be on the next one.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So do you have another all-star assemblage of people on this, or is it mostly stuck to a core group of people?
Well, I'll tell you how we did this. It was the tail end of COVID, and I was home and I was writing all this stuff, and I spent a week listening to Bob Dylan. And, all of a sudden I thought to myself, what would Bob say about what's going on in the world? So all the lines that I wrote down ended up in The Way of the World. So my homage to Bob Dylan. And what I would do is I'd come up with a song, and then I'd call Lawrence Juber, because Lawrence Juber co-produced this with Tony Bronigal, the guy that did the Fresh Bear Tracks album. Right. And I'd call up Lawrence. I'd go to his house. I'd bring a keyboard. I'd sit down. I'd put a click track on. I'd put a mic up. I'd sing the song that I wrote. We'd put it down into Pro Tools. Lawrence would send it over to Tony's house. Tony had his drums set up in his living room, and he'd put the drums on the track. It would go back to Lawrence. Lawrence would put the guitars on it. Then it would go over to either Hutch Hutchinson from Bonnie Raitt's band, or Ricky Cortez, or one of the guys, or Dominic or somebody, to play bass on it. And we get that back from them. And it would go to maybe, let's see, I would see who's got the best mic over, best microphone at their house. Right. And whoever had the best mic that week, I'd go over there and sing the song. And
that's awesome.
Like over at JJ Blair's house, he had a bunch of Neumanns, and I went, I'm going to your house. Yeah. So, yeah.
This album and Fresh Bear Tracks, it doesn't sound like your early stuff. In fact, I think it's the best stuff you've written. I mean, they kind of sound more like, I don't hate to say Bob Seger, but you mentioned it before, like if Bob Seger and Donald Fagen wrote a couple albums together. That's kind of the feeling that I get from both of these.
Well, that's the way I feel. Like, I'm a huge, Walter Becker and Donald Fagen fan. And, I got to tell you, the guy writes some amazing stuff.
Really does.
And when I got another record deal, they said, well, why do you want to put these albums out? Why do you want to put this album out for? I said, because, I want to capture a niche of people that have a relationship with music, that used to go to the record store, buy an album, open it up, put it on the turntable, sit down, smoke a bone or have a beer or whatever, and listen to it and read all about it. Read all about it and get into the artist's head a little bit. And, it takes them away from their daily whatever, and it's an oasis. It's kind of an oasis. So that's what I said to them. I said, I'm not a young pop star kid. I don't write two lines and repeat them, ad nauseum and write two chords or three. I said, look, I'm a singer-songwriter. I write stories. I write interesting stories that people can really get behind. So when they're in the car and they're stuck in traffic, they go, oh, maybe a change would do me good will be good here. A little Bo Diddley.
Yes.
Or Jewel, or, a dinner for one. I'm making my dinner tonight and I'm the only guy going to be there.
Yep.
So I'll put on Dinner for One.
I polished my finest silver, placed linen napkins that your mother gave. Flowers were cut low so my eyes could greet your gaze. I've been cooking rope, I bake slowly to form ideas I could convey. Ceiling fans keep me cool, but my mind seems to drift away. Outside the neon flames from exhaust.
So, that's why we do things like that. I want to carry, and I'm not saying this in any arrogance whatsoever. I am a very humble guy, and I just want to carry the torch for a lot of the artists that are no longer with us because, they had a lot more music in them and they were taken way before their time.
Absolutely. I know what you mean.
And, people that go out and look to buy music today or download music, all they're able to get from those artists that are gone basically is the best of or remastered stuff. So I want to give them something that's completely fresh, completely new that they've never heard, but it's in that wheelhouse.
Well, I think you've accomplished that. And I've got a question about it, one song in particular, because it is in my top songs on this album. Red Harvest. Who's playing on Red Harvest?
Okay. Red Harvest is an interesting track, and it's a bonus track because the week that Russia invaded the Ukraine, I was watching it on CNN and I started writing, as I do, a poem called Red Harvest. So I finished the poem. I called up Bruce Quarto of Quarto Valley Records, my boss at the label.
Right.
And I said, Bruce, I want to do something for the Ukrainian people. See, my father was born in Warsaw, Poland. His family had come from the Ukraine to the United States.
Okay.
So I had some skin in the game in my DNA.
Right.
And I said, look, I want to put this out separate from my stuff. Maybe the label can put it out and we can put a little link to the Ukrainian Red Cross at the end.
Okay.
And the World Kitchen, because they're feeding everybody at the border and also in Kiev.
Okay.
So, and then the war just escalated in the next few days. And I went, Bruce, I really want to go in the studio and do this. He says, well, have you got any music to it yet? And I said, yeah. I sat down and it took me 10 minutes and I wrote a song. And it's just one of those things that, it just happens. Every time I hit the piano, the right notes came out with those words. I said, okay, I'm going to go in the studio. Can you get behind it? He says, yeah, go ahead, go do it. So here's who's on it. Tony Bronicle's playing drums.
Okay.
Lawrence Juber's playing guitars. Leland Sklar, is on bass. Ida Pasternak, who's a Russian violinist, is on it.
Oh, cool.
I'm playing keyboards. Gia Chapati just singing some backgrounds, and I needed a singer to sing with me, so I called David Crosby. And I said, Cros, you have the perfect voice for this. I'm thinking about wooden ships and all that kind of stuff. He says, all right, send me it. Let me see if I get behind it, if I understand it. So the next day, crickets. And I call him up like 2 days later. I said, we cut the tracks. We need to put this thing out. He says, I haven't listened yet. I'm busy too, Bear. I said, okay. He could be a little prickly.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, would you please listen to it? He says, I'll get to it maybe over the weekend. And that was like on a Monday or Tuesday.
Oh. So
I'm thinking, oh, shit, what am I going to do? And that night, I get a phone call. And a guy goes, is this T-Bear? I said, yeah. He said, oh, this is Paul Rogers. I said, hey, Paul. He says, yeah, I want to sing on your song with you.
Oh, man.
Bruce Quarto sent it to me, and my wife and I think it's a marvelous song, and let's try to help those people.
Wow.
And I said, done. So it's Paul Rogers and T-Bear singing a duet with all those great players, and it's the bonus track called Red Harvest.
The world is plunged into darkness in the red harvest this year. A child said, look, Mama, a shooting star. Then it exploded in their car. Homes are burning and lives in tatters. Children dying 'cause their lives don't matter in the...
I knew that.
And it's a really good YouTube video too.
Oh, I haven't even seen the video. I have to go look at it. I've just been taking the album and listening to it at work as I'm working. So They don't like me watching YouTube videos at work. But when I first heard that, I'm like, that's, and I don't have the credits, so I'm just kind of guessing. And I'm like, that just sounds so much like Paul Rodgers. So I gotta ask who's actually playing on this, because it sounded so much. I'm like, guy knows a lot of people. It could be. So now, are you planning on going out and playing shows, or have you already started playing shows to support the album?
I've just started playing to support this, and I have a band with Lawrence Schubert, Tony Bronigal, me, and Ricky Cortez, and it's a great quartet. I mean, it's really the shit,
yes.
And we love playing together, and we're playing a place called the Mint in LA, which we wanted to play little small venues. And then we're playing another place in LA called the Write-Off Room. And then we're playing in Bakersfield in September. And then I'm out on the road with Walter Trout and playing in his band for I've been out on the road with him for a year.
Oh, wow.
And I've played 16 countries with him. So we'll be out in the Midwest starting in July, and then in the East Coast in August, and then I think the UK in September.
Oh, awesome. What's the best way for people to find the album and pick it up and support you?
Okay, so the way to find this album, it's easy. It's called The Way of the World. It's on Quarto Valley Records. It's on all the streaming platforms. And tbear.rocks.com is my website. And I also do a Facebook Live every Tuesday under T-Bear from 1 o'clock to 1:30 LA time.
Okay.
And people from all around the world are, visiting that, and guests, and we talk about stuff, and I sing some songs and we hang.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, so there's things on YouTube called The Bear Facts about the Fresh Bear Tracks album, and you get to hear from Stephen Stills and Edgar Winter and people like that.
Yes.
And and so download this thing, because it's a really good record, and I'm really proud of it.
I've been enjoying it, and like I said, one of my favorite things about it is that every song tells a story, and you don't get that much anymore. So thank you for putting that much effort into everything.
Well, you'll like the next album I'm working on right now. It's called The Book of Secrets.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, J.D. Salinger is one of the topics.
Wow.
He's a chapter in it.
Oh,
Anthony Bourdain's another chapter.
I'm sold.
Yeah, you'll like it.
Sharks never stop swimming. Riders need a beginning. Cheaters never stop winning. That's the way of the world. Losers need a do-over when they're living in clover. They want it over and over. That's the way of the world.
Thank you.
I had a really good time, man. I want to be your friend. Oh, how's that?
I love it. I think that's great, man. Thank you so much.